This entire race has been about dignity and respect.
It is not over. God is always in control.
Fox News has just obtained those 10,000 text messages. These are the anti-Trump text messages that led special counsel Robert Mueller to remove Strzok from the Russia investigation.
There's no way that this is sexist at all. This is simply talking about a system that we have that is broken.
Alabama overnight. You're watching Fox and Friends First on this Wednesday morning. Very busy one for you. I'm Heather Childers. Let's get straight to that Fox News alert for you. An upset in Alabama. Democrat Doug Jones declared the winner against Republican Roy Moore in a very tight race for the Senate. But Moore refusing to concede, saying it's not over yet. And Jonathan Siri live for us in Montgomery, Alabama with the very latest. So, Jonathan, this would be the first Democrat in, what, 2 decades?
Yeah, that's right. More than that, Heather. You know, in a conventional election cycle in Alabama, many people would have said that a victory for a Democrat in a statewide election would have been impossible. But this campaign was far from conventional. This is a solidly red state, and yet Democrat Doug Jones has become the first member of his party to be elected to the Senate from Alabama in 25 years.
There are important issues of health care and jobs and the economy. We've tried to make sure that this campaign was about finding common ground and reaching across and actually getting things done for the people.
But perhaps the biggest factor bringing about Jones' victory were the allegations of sexual impropriety facing his Republican opponent, Roy Moore. Moore, who rode to the polls on horseback yesterday, denies the allegations and is yet to concede the race. His campaign hoping Moore's vote count would come within half a percentage point of Jones, which would trigger a recount.
When the vote is this close, that it's not over. And we still got to go by the rules about this recount provision. Wait on God and let this process play out. It's not over, and it's going to take some time. Thank you.
But with Jones coming in with 49.9% of the vote to Moore's 48.4%, a 1.5-point difference, a recount appears highly unlikely. The Alabama GOP issued a statement saying, while we are deeply disappointed in the extremely close U.S. Senate election results with our candidate, Judge Roy Moore, we respect the voting process given to us by our founding fathers. Overnight, President Trump tweeted congratulations to Doug Jones on a hard-fought victory. The write-in votes played a big factor, but a win is a win. The people of Alabama are great, and the Republicans will have another shot at this seat in a very short period of time. It never ends. Heather, back to you.
And that is true. It never ends. Over 22,000 write-in votes. We're going to talk much more about what happened coming up. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it. Long night in Alabama. Well, Doug Jones' stunning victory in the deep red state of Alabama is putting more pressure on Republicans to hold on to the majority. And Dana Perino, host of the Daily Briefing and former White House press secretary, says if this outcome shocked you, well, brace yourself for 2018.
I think that based on what we've heard from our voter analysis and then also just from the outcome is that his denials were not credible enough. But also I think that we're in an era of political disruption. So nobody thought that Trump could win at the beginning in that June of 2015. He's our president. A Democrat hasn't been elected in Alabama in 25 years. This is also, I think, just a very specific circumstance. Without these allegations, I think Roy Moore would definitely be the senator from Alabama. One thing to look at is the turnout pattern similar to that in Virginia gubernatorial race that happened just last month, in which Ed Gillespie, the Republican, lost big time in Virginia. And one of those things to look at is that President Trump in Virginia won married women by 10 points. Ed Gillespie lost it by, or only won it by 1 point, and he lost so big.
Yeah, we're going to break down all of that for you. Another big story. This is huge. Loathsome human, idiot, and talk of Watergate. We now know exactly what was in those anti-Trump texts sent by the FBI agent who has kicked off Robert Mueller's Russia probe. And it's not pretty. In fact, some of it, we can't even share some of it for you on morning TV. It's that bad. Griff Jenkins is live from our D.C. bureau with the stunning new text messages that have been obtained by Fox News. Griff, I couldn't stop going through these this morning. It's crazy.
Stunning indeed. Good morning, Heather. These obtained by Fox News between two FBI agents assigned to the Russia probe, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. It led Special Counsel Robert Mueller to remove Strzok from the investigation, and the language is at times profane and not for morning television, as you say. And this is all, Heather, going to fuel the narrative that the investigation is tainted. Now, let's just start with March 4th last year. Page, God, Trump is a loathsome human. Strzok, yet he may win. Good for Hillary. It is. Would be a worse president than Cruz? Page. Trump? Yes, I think so. I'm not sure. Strzok. Oh, my God. He's an idiot. In this, Strzok. God, Hillary should win 100 million to 0. Page, I know. Now, remember, all of this has taken place while Strzok is an integral part of the FBI's investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails. He was the one credited with changing the wording in then FBI Director James Comey's assessment from grossly negligent to extremely careful. A month later, Page appears to acknowledge that they're doing something they shouldn't. Look at this. Page, so look, you say we text on that phone when we talk about Hillary because it can't be traced. Now later, by October, after candidate Trump has gotten the nomination, Strzok's deeply felt bias reaches new heights. Here on the 20th of October, I am riled up, Strzok says. Trump is an expletive idiot, is unable to provide a coherent answer. That same day, in all caps, that's shouting across texting, can't pull away what the expletive happened to our country. The reaction from the White House, Heather, has been stern. Here's what one of the president's personal attorneys, Jay Sekulow, said to Hannity last night.
The conflicts of interest inside the FBI and Department of Justice as to this Fusion GPS matter is breathtaking in scope.
Now, there is also this November text exchange, which perhaps shows a little bit of the thinking from Strzok. Strzok writing, quote, bought all the president's men, figured I needed to brush up on Watergate. Page, my God, Sessions for DOD or OJ. Attorney General, that is. Strzok, Attorney General. Page, good God. Now, the revelations are highly significant, Heather, because the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, is expected to testify before a House Oversight Committee today. Rosenstein is the one who appointed Mueller in the first place. And if that wasn't enough for you, this also comes as the president's son, Donald Trump Jr., is calling for an investigation before he is interviewed by the Senate Intelligence Committee today behind closed doors. So it is certainly an understatement to say that this is a stunning development.
I mean, it really is. Much more to come on this. Thank you so much, Griff. Appreciate it as the construction continues there behind you in our studio in D.C. Thank you. Well, the bias just exposed, you heard Griff talking about it, and the people at the forefront of the collusion investigation, Peter Strzok, not only had a hand in interviewing Cheryl Mills, Huma Abedin, Hillary Clinton, and General Flynn, he was also involved in the anti-Trump dossier and the Hillary email investigation. And Fox News national security strategist Dr. Sebastian Gorka now calling out the investigation for being corrupt.
It means that this whole investigation is a sham. It is a house of cards, and it should be closed down tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. You don't have to agree with the President of the United States. I was an employee of the Department of Defense for 6 years under President Obama. I did not vote for him, but the fact is, this is a senior law enforcement official who wasn't just a bureaucrat. This was an individual who has been tasked to investigate a sitting president who, if these texts are confirmed, he agrees with the person he's texting is a loathsome individual. How does that mean you're going to investigate him? What is your axe to grind? And how are you an impartial peace officer if that is your opinion of the most senior member of our government? It is an utter outrage, Sean.
Unreal. Let us know what you think. Well, the president's lawyer says that all the White House interviews are over, though, in Robert Mueller's Russia probe. So we'll talk more about that. Well, new Facebook post revealing that want-to-be Port Authority suicide bomber taunted President Trump just moments before his botched attack, as our president doubles down on his promise to end the program that led him into the country in the first place. And Kelly Wright is live for us, also in D.C., with some new details unfolding at this hour. Good morning, Kelly.
Heather, good morning to you as well. These are chilling new details about the wannabe terrorist who targeted one of the biggest transit hubs in New York City. Right before detonating the Port Authority bomb, Akayed Ullah posted a message to our commander-in-chief on Facebook writing, "Trump, you failed to protect your nation." Police also found a note in his passport saying, "Oh, America, die in your rage." It comes as his family faces growing backlash over their controversial statement, chastising law enforcement for interrogating family members after the terror attack. Ex-CIA analyst and radio host Buck Sexton mocking them, tweeting, "Sorry, our son tried to blow up a lot of you on your way to work today, but the cops were kind of rude to us after that, and we want answers." Former talk show host Montel Williams even discussed it, posting on Twitter this moronic, offensive, morally indefensible statement by care lawyer Con Lawney, just cost chair national, my support. I'm done. Ullah, by the way, who will make his first court appearance from his hospital bed today, came to Brooklyn from Bangladesh 7 years ago, thanks to the extended family chain migration program, allowing him into the U.S. simply because a relative won a visa through a lottery. President Trump is vowing to put an end to it fast.
The lottery system and chain migration, we're going to end them fast. Congress must get involved immediately, and they are involved immediately, and I can tell you we have tremendous support. They will be ended.
The Centers for Immigration Studies reports this year, 99% of the 12,000 immigrant visas were family-based. As for Ullah, he's facing several charges, including criminal possession of a weapon, supporting an act of terrorism, and making a terroristic threat. Heather?
Yeah, and just on the heels of all this happening here in New York City, the city council is making some moves that's going to make it a little more difficult for police to do their jobs. Imagine that. We'll talk about it later. Thank you very much, Kelly.
Sure.
Well, this Fox News alert for you, open for discussion. The U.S. making a move to get Kim Jong-un to come to the table.
We're ready to talk anytime North Korea would like to talk.
The new tactic, as evidence reveals another missile test could be coming soon. And balance of power, what does a Democratic win in Alabama mean for President Trump's agenda? Our next guest says that there's one key Republican bill that Doug Jones needs to get on board with. And Colin Kaepernick sparking a new...
Alabama has been at a crossroads. We have been at crossroads in the past. And unfortunately, we have usually taken the wrong fork. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, you took the right road.
There you go. Democrat Doug Jones declaring a surprise victory in Alabama as his embattled opponent Roy Moore refuses to concede. Republicans now down a seat in the Senate. So how will this impact the president's agenda? Here now to weigh in is political analyst with Media DC, Ron Meyer. Ron, thank you for joining us once again. We appreciate it.
Good morning, Heather.
So big night in Alabama. What does this mean for the Republican agenda? Let's begin there moving forward.
Well, we know that we don't think Doug Jones is going to be sworn in until the beginning of next year. So we have the Republicans would have at least a month to pass tax reform. And so, but even if they don't, I think Doug Jones will be compelled to have to look at voting for these sorts of things. If you look at someone like a Manchin from West Virginia, a Heitkamp from North Dakota, they're really hurting themselves by not being bipartisan, by not voting with Republicans ever, especially on things like tax reform. And so he's basically, Doug Jones is a dead man walking in 2020 unless he works with Republicans. And so, in fact, the Trump agenda may not be dead. It's just he's going to, I think Doug Jones is actually going to have to work with the Trump agenda, with Republicans, in order to get anything done. And I think that's frankly a good thing to actually have some bipartisanship up here on the Hill.
Well, Republicans could only lose 2 votes before. Now they can only lose 1. Is there one specific area that you think is more important for Jones to come on board than others?
Well, I mean, there's some areas that make a lot of sense, like infrastructure. Jones ran on infrastructure, so Trump shouldn't lose a vote on the infrastructure bill that he's working on. When you look at issues like health care reform, Alabama is having terrible troubles with their health care system, and so there should be some room for some significant bipartisanship that still works with the Trump agenda, and Jones has to get on board, or he's not going to have any chance at 2020. And my only question is, does he just give up on 2020 and just be who he wants to be, which is a more left-of-center person than what he ran as?
And what do you think this means for, like, the midterm elections moving forward? Because, as you know, the president tweeted, it never ends. There's another election coming soon.
It never ends, but Republicans do have to learn a lesson. Yes, Roy Moore was a terribly flawed candidate. Yes, Republicans didn't show up because of his allegations, because of his other problems. But you also have to remember, Democrats, if you look at the turnout, were ultra energized. Places where in the highly Democratic areas turned out higher than ever before. People who didn't approve of the president turned out much higher propensities than anybody else. And
over 22,000 write-in votes.
And over 22,000 write-in votes. So any Republican would have won. But here's the issue. Democrats are very energized. If Republicans don't learn from that, we're going to have real big issues in 2018.
Ron, I want to move you forward to this one. Another big story today. These brand new anti-Trump text messages between the ex-FBI Mueller team members. They were the one was taken off, Strzok, has now been moved to Human Resources or something like that. Obviously anti-Trump, to say the very least. Some of these we can't even share. We're showing some of the people at home some of those text messages. What do you think about this?
It's really undermining people's belief in government and people's belief in the American system. We've heard President Trump say crazy things about the investigation, like you shouldn't believe it, it's a farce. And then when you see text messages like this, people start to believe that. And when you have the FBI and when you have a multi-million-dollar investigation being undermined like this, it really withers away people's trust in government and their faith in American institutions. And that is a sad thing. And so not only should these people be punished and should the probe be looked at, it's really sad when you have to investigate the investigators in America, and that's where we are. We need to investigate the investigators to get to the bottom of it, to see if this is actually a fair investigation. And the fact that
I don't know how it could be at this point. I mean,
I don't know how it could be either, and that's crazy.
Thank you so much, Ron. We appreciate you joining us. A lot to talk about today. Thank you. And we will be right back. Much more straight ahead. Here's a quote. It was insulting. Officers saying that, outraged as anthem-kneeling Colin Kaepernick, you see him right there, pushes his anti-cop agenda, making a surprise visit to meet New York prison inmates. Carly Shimkus with Fox News Headlines 24/7, Sirius XM 115, here with some reaction online. Good morning.
Yeah, this is a big one. Now, it was billed as an event that would bring a message of hope and inspiration, but according to Rikers Island prison guards, it was anything but. Union leaders are up in arms by Colin Kaepernick's invitation to the New York City prison, saying it would only encourage inmates to attack officers. Now, according to a statement from the president of the Correction Officers Benevolent Association, he says this will only encourage inmates to continue to attack corrections officers at a time when we need more protections. Once again, corrections officers find themselves caught in Mayor de Blasio's political con game. Now, according to the New York Post, Colin Kaepernick spoke to inmates about police brutality and social injustice. And while his speech was considered calm, there is a lot of concern over him being there, especially on social media. Eric says, let him try being a corrections officer or a cop on the streets and watch his opinion of police brutality change. Those jobs aren't easy. Thank you to the men and women in blue who keep us safe. And another Twitter user says, what do you expect? He wore pig socks to protest police. This effort to reach out to troubled minorities seems like an attempt to rub salt in that wound. Now, according to City Hall spokesperson, Colin Kaepernick should be applauded for using his celebrity to possibly change lives. So a pretty controversial situation, possibly dangerous situation there.
Really, it sounds like it doesn't make any sense. Meryl Streep, she's back, but she's distancing herself from the anti-Trump movement.
That's right. Well, she became the face of the anti-Trump movement during the Golden Globes. Globes, but now she says she doesn't want to be political. During an interview with BuzzFeed News, she says, "It's affected my life because I don't want to be that. I'm a really private person, and like a lot of people in show business, I'm actually shy, so it's hard for me to do all this stuff." Wasn't shy during the Golden Globes when she made that infamous anti-Trump speech. Mara on Twitter says most Hollywood elites should do the same. They are wasting their time whining like losers. So pretty powerful stuff there.
Yeah. All right. So speaking of powerful, this is the most important one. We have to get to this. The internet up in arms about what is the right way to cut toast.
That's right. Should we say the internet is divided, maybe cut in half over how to do this? A tweet from a British student union says, "Which way would you prefer our staff to cut your toast at the end of the night?" We have some options here: diagonal, horizontal, or vertical. We want to hear from our Fox and Friends First viewers. How do you think is the right way to cut toast? I go with number one here. It always makes the sandwich taste better.
Yeah, absolutely, especially if it's grilled cheese in between the toast.
I'm getting hungry.
Yeah. All right, thank you so much, Carly.
Thanks
Appreciate it. Let us know what you think, for sure. The time now is about 27 minutes after the top of the hour. And policing the police. Despite 2 recent terror attacks in New York City, liberal politicians are taking some new steps to stop officers from doing their jobs. Our next guest is a New York City councilman who says that it is the PC police putting all of us in danger. The Fox and Friends First on a very busy morning. New York City's finest under growing pressure as terrorists take aim. So why is the City Council pushing legislation that would make it harder for officers to do their jobs? Joining me now to discuss is New York City Councilman Joe Borelli. So we had this terrorist attack, this wannabe suicide bomber in New York City. 6 weeks prior to that, we had the terrorist who used a van to attack people on the West Side Highway. But the City Council is planning to do what?
I mean, I think your viewers are as dismayed as I am why the City Council would choose this very moment, right after the wake of these 2 attacks, to pass a bill that basically constrains officers' ability and desire to be proactive, to stop people, to search them, to do the kind of things that we are hoping that police officers are doing in subway tunnels, on buses, etc.
Yeah, so we hear for people like myself and you, see something, say something, so we want to get that message out. But at the same time, when officers see something, by this, their hands are tied.
Right. So this bill basically would require an officer to get the person's consent or to get documentation that they're consenting to a search. That goes beyond the person's Fourth Amendment protections against unreasonable searches and seizures. So you could have a situation where a person feels emboldened, decides to say to the officer, "I don't want to be searched, I don't need to be searched," and that in itself could cause a problem. The other side of this bill is that each person who gets searched or gets into an interaction with the police officer would get basically a business card with the officer's identification, information, their name, and be encouraged to file a complaint against the officer. This is something that this is too far left for even Mayor de Blasio to put it on a scale.
I mean, I'm trying to put my head around it, and I'm trying to think of a situation. So you come across someone who you think is maybe going to do a terrorist attack on the city.
A gun crime, a shooting, a burglary, anything.
And you think that they may have something on their person or in their vehicle, but you would have to get a warrant before you can search them?
No, you would basically have to get their consent.
But they say no, and then what?
If they say no, there's certain situations when you could still do it, but it's still a problem. Look, and the other part of it is this notification of their person's identification, the cop's ID. I know cops, you know cops. They're fearless when it comes to protecting the public and their own lives. What cops are afraid of is getting jammed up, losing their jobs, losing their pension over something they thought was in the best interest of the public. Right. That's what cops are afraid of. And instead of the City Council being a cheerleader for the police department who's out there day in and day out making sure New York City is safe, we have a bunch of people who are their detractors, who are frankly their enemies, and who want to constrain their ability to do the one thing we could all agree they should really be doing, and that's foiling major violent crimes.
Does that not really seem like something that a lawyer would have suggested? No offense to lawyers, but to give the card to the perpetrator or the person that you want to search?
Yes, this is only going to increase the number of complaints our civilian complaint board gets, which 87% of cases in 2016 were completely dismissed as based in no merit of fact. So this is just a way to really constrain what officers want to do. It's designed to make them less active, less proactive. There's 260 468 subway stations in New York City. It's luck when we foil a terrorist attack.
Yeah.
The last thing we want to do is be lucky that we have a police officer on some train platform and have them hesitate for a moment because they're afraid of what might come if they ask the wrong person to search their bag.
Well, and we have those 4 NYPD officers who did not hesitate and jumped on this suspect and avoided perhaps a second blast.
Amen.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joe, for joining us. We appreciate it. Well, North Korea, let's talk about them now. They may be preparing to test another missile, another one, some new activity at launch sites now being reported, including secret coded messages broadcast by North Korea signaling likely a weapons test is near. But Secretary of State Rex Tillerson says that he's ready to talk it out.
We're ready to talk anytime North Korea would like to talk. And we're ready to have the first meeting without precondition. It's not realistic to say we're only going to talk if you come to the table ready to give up your program. They have too much invested in it.
And you'll remember this. Last month, North Korea launched its most advanced missile yet that it claims could strike anywhere in the United States. The war of words heating up between the White House and Democratic Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, the Trump administration, firing back after she demanded the president resign over sexual misconduct allegations. President Trump tweeting this: lightweight Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, a total flunky for Chuck Schumer and someone who would come to my office begging for campaign contributions not so long ago and would do anything for them, is now in the ring fighting against Trump, very disloyal to Bill and crooked used. Well, Gillibrand tweeting back, saying in part that she will not be silenced. Democrats quick to pounce, though, calling President Trump's tweet sexist. But Sarah Huckabee Sanders shutting that down. Listen.
There's no way that this is sexist at all. This is simply talking about a system that we have that is broken, in which special interests control our government.
Is Gillibrand owed an apology?
I think only if your mind is in the gutter would you have read it that way. And so no.
Yeah, a lot of people agree with Sarah there. Well, an Arkansas commission now clearing the way for the installation of a new Ten Commandments monument outside the state's capital. This after a man live streamed himself plowing through the marker less than 24 hours after it was put up.
Freedom!
Well, that man found unfit to stand trial. The new monument will include 4 concrete posts for protection, and it will be installed in the coming weeks. The Festival of Lights has begun. Hanukkah officially kicking off, celebrating the rededication of the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. Hundreds gathering for the national menorah lighting just across from the White House. President Trump tweeting, wishing all of those celebrating Hanukkah around the world a happy and healthy 8 nights in the company of those they love. Well, the time now is about 20 minutes until the top of the hour, and a major health care insurer making a play to fight the opioid crisis, the potentially life-saving plan. And a shocking discovery in an Airbnb, another host caught watching guests. What you need to know about the creepy cameras spying on you.
39 years old.
And welcome back to Fox and Friends. First, a New Orleans Saints season ticket holder suing his favorite NFL team over the non-stop kneeling. That right there. He says that the protest, he actually paid $8,000 for tickets for the year, but he only went to 1 game because of the protest. He says the players who stay in the tunnel or take a knee, they prevent his family from enjoying the games. And he also says that the boos from the crowd towards the players make for a bad family environment. So he's asking for a full refund. I bet others will follow on that. Well, a nurse staying at an Airbnb, this is disturbing, finds a hidden camera and the alarm clock next to her bed. South Carolina police arrested the host. You see him here, Cesar Adam Menendez Fuentes. The woman was alerted when the clock was put into her room after she checked in, but the clock didn't work. This is just the latest in a string of Airbnb hidden camera incidents. A couple visiting Florida found a camera inside a smoke detector over their bed in October. And then another guest found a camera hidden near a shower disguised as a motion detector just last week. So be aware of that if you're using Airbnb. And now to this Fox Business Alert. One of the country's largest health insurers is now joining the fight against America's opioid crisis. Aetna announcing a major policy change that could help save lives, we hope. Tracy Crosco from our sister network, Fox Business, here to explain what it is and whether you qualify. Good morning, Tracy.
Good morning, Heather. Yes, this is a major step forward to fight this opioid crisis, and Aetna says that it will waive the copay for some members for Narcan. That's the nasal spray that reverses the effects of an opioid overdose. So that would apply to 4.6 million Aetna fully insured commercial members. They would receive that waiver. Aetna also says that it's going to cap the supply of opioids to members to 7 days after they've been prescribed those drugs after a surgery or for pain.
All right, so let's move on to JetBlue.
Yes.
Their new free flight promotion with Amazon. Well, it sounds like a good idea, but
Yes.
It's gone wrong, horribly wrong.
Yes, it sounds too good to be true. So JetBlue, they came up with this idea to create a board game called Get Packing. They were going to sell it on Amazon for $19.99, and inside that game would be a free airline ticket. Sounds amazing. The game was supposed to go on sale yesterday at noon, but when people went to go buy it, it wasn't there. It turns out that there were only about 200 editions of this game, and it sold out within seconds, according to JetBlue. People, though, were upset. They were taking to social media saying that this was a scam, and this prompted JetBlue to go back and say, okay, we're going to take a look at this, and we'll relaunch this game on the 18th. So you'll have another chance if you're quick.
So originally only 200 of the games with the free ticket.
Yes.
All right.